Welcome to the video dungeon. Actually, I don't know if you can even see me in this. Anyways, as you can see, I'm still. This is kind of a continuation from the last video. I'm still sort of organizing these videos, but it's broken down into. Here, I'll show you. So we broke it down into. I was saying I was separating it out by channels and kind of adjusting. First line is kind of general, so it talks about here. Let me. Not like this, maybe. It's sort of it's either information about the mafia in general because it's a mafia documentary, or about Milwaukee Mafia because it's about the Milwaukee Mafia specifically. Frank Balistieri. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So then, second line is specifically things about Frank. So anything where I need to put in things specifically related to him, and then the first lines, and then third line is more about like stories. So still related, but it's important to scatter the stories throughout. And then this is a little bit of a cheat. I think ideally, if we had more time, if we had more time, we would actually transcribe the interviews. But instead, what I'm doing is I moved everything over to 1 hour, and that way I can timestamp it. And that way I can say, okay, at 0, the interviewee introduced himself. At 7 seconds, he introduces Frank and says his names. So basically these notes, and I timestamp them so I know this. And then I also use basically a version of this. A is the general intro. Is this anything general intro? B is if it has a B next to it, it's about Frank himself. So like here at 5:46, which now would be 1 hour and 46. The reason why I moved it over is because I'm actually editing, and then I actually started. So I already kind of start picking these pieces and moving them over here. I should have probably copied and pasted them, just because then if I change my mind, I can just access it here. But I think just at the time I dragged it, so maybe I'll do that later. So this part right here, actually, I don't know why I started it there. It should be over here. Anyways, so kind of like building with Legos, where you're maybe, yeah, that's a good example. So basically, I'm taking all these story parts, and the reason why I'm doing this, I still have to go through and finish. I wish I had someone else that could kind of do that for me. Again, transcribing is even easier. It's just a question of it's very low budget and very low turnaround. So we have a month to make this, and we're kind of behind behind my planned schedule just because other projects popped up. But we should still be able to make it. It's just a question of it's the final push. So anyways, organizing these into time-coded the questions, and then I'll sort of, I already have a little bit of a, so here's like the basic flow chart of the story. It starts off with the mob before Frank, and Frank is a mob. It was the mob boss, probably the most prolific mob boss in Milwaukee. So his life before being a mob boss, his training, or like kind of like how do you become. So we'll kind of talk about the structure, stuff like that. The world during. So that's when we share. The thing with the stories is I don't want all the stories to happen in the middle. You want to have like these stories kind of sprinkled in with the information. Otherwise, you'll have like stories is really the most interesting part. So you want to make sure it's spread out. And these kind of go together. But the crimes, these specifically probably hitting more on him going into prison, and these two will overlap. But that I should probably connect that somehow. But I know it, so I don't have to. Here, these two are connected, so they kind of overlap each other. And then his death, and kind of talking about it's basically a tragedy. He died poor and alone, and they released him from jail because he was sick and old. So, and that's the thing, we have to sort of set that up throughout as like, the beauty of a tragedy is somebody becoming. You want to really set that up as like, if some dude becomes like if he becomes a bus driver, not anything against bus drivers, and then loses his job, that's bad, but you want to really set the stakes of like that job means, family and all this. So for him, you really want to paint the picture of like he's on top of the world, and that way when he falls, it has an emotional connection. And I'm still working on the ending. I have to think about that a bit and think about classic stories. How do classic tragedies end? Things like that, and then say, do I just want to have it where maybe at the end where you're just like, and then the fall and it ends with the word saying basically he died, poor and alone, kind of a thing. And I should probably double check to make sure because that's the hard part too, is kind of keeping it within facts and also, because you have to worry because these are real people. There's that worry. So yeah, that's where we are. I thought this would help with sort of a second part of the editing process to documentary films. Just wanted to shoot this quick. Hope you found that helpful. And we're gonna start doing these live down the road. Just the turnaround's so short that I have no time to figure that out yet. I know how to do it. I just haven't. I know there's gonna be technical difficulties, and I don't want to deal with them at this point. So expect that soon, probably on the next project. Maybe even during some of I work with some students at a high school now doing films, and they're doing some amazing work. So maybe behind the scenes of that. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.